But you know what? If you hadn't established yourself and had the confidence to come across as an expert, that doesn't work as well. But you got to have so much confidence in the way that you explain things and your recommendations that they're not going to think twice. They're almost going to be like, well, we're not sure, but since you're the expert, you tell us what we should get. That's what you want to establish yourself as an expert. Welcome back, everybody, to Just Real Quick. Another episode with my guy, Jared Everett, where every week we're coming to you with some sales training to help you up your game, increase your efficiency and effectiveness as a salesperson. And today, I'm going to let Jared start talking about some of the stuff that we're going to be introducing.
Yeah. So we have been, as you guys know, spending some time developing all of our virtual content. So this is something for directors. It's a good tool to use for directors in any scenario, but it's more so for our directors that are fresh with the company, a little bit newer. So we have our training broken down, and same thing with coordinators. We have like a level 1 sort of training where we'll put you through a program. We're going to give you everything you need to be successful. But then we have a level 2 to where if you're really looking to break through, figure out the nuances and the things to take things to the next level and go from good to great, that's what the level 2 is. So for this specific podcast, guys, we're going to focus on level 1 director training. And this is the flow of the appointment. So it's just going to be kind of an overview of each section of the appointment and some important aspects of each section as you go to ensure that you're getting through it, 1, quickly, but 2, in the right way in managing the customer's energy levels. Because if you take too long, you're too boring or whatever it is, there's a lot of things that come together to make this thing work, and managing the flow of the appointment is one of the most important things.
Yep, you gotta control the process, because you're either being sold or you're selling, or you're either controlling or they're controlling. And we all know what the answer is for the most conducive environment for leaving there with a contract.
Absolutely. And also it's the experience. We want to provide our customers with this experience. I like to say it's all high fives and handshakes. And what I mean by that, they're excited. I'm excited for them. We're going to get them taken care of. We're going to solve their problems. And, we're doing chest bumps and high fives and handshakes and coming back, being invited to barbecues, all sorts of stuff because of the experience that we gave them. And, people, a lot of times they might not remember certain details, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
100%. So important.
Absolutely. And so when we go in there, we provide an experience in running an appointment with them. It's not just that we're there to collect money from them. We're there to provide them with an experience. It's a positive experience that will not only lead to the sell, it's going to lead to a low cancellation rate, but it's also going to lead to, for the ones that don't close, the door being open for future opportunities with them.
100%. Yep. I mean, the reality is we're not going to be able to get everybody. Even though we know it's the right decision for them, sometimes it's just not the right timing. Timing is everything. But the one thing that I always try to do, no matter what the circumstances were, whether it was the initial meeting at the door or I'm having to leave this thing as tactfully as possible to have another chance down the road for either myself or another one of our directors, was, man, I want to leave a good taste in their mouth. I want to leave a good impression. I want them to remember that they had a good feeling about this guy and his expertise in this area, that if they were going to go with anybody, there is no doubt in their mind who they would go with.
Absolutely. And like I said, they might not even remember the details, but they remember how they felt, and that's their guy.
Yep. They remember that confidence in your ability to help them. And when they're ready, you better dang sure make sure they have your contact information.
Yeah, you don't want your contact information, because you don't want them calling the office and having somebody getting something that you put the work in for, because trust me, it happens. Our project managers, I can't tell you how many deals they've gotten just because we haven't followed up or made sure that we were in their face about phase 2 or whatever it was.
Yep.
But yeah, guys, so kind of segueing a little bit into some key points in terms of managing the flow. And one thing I like to cover is, so I have this, it says indecision is a deal killer. So what I mean by that is when you're in an appointment and along the way, there's decisions that we have the customer make, and it's good. You want them making decisions. You want them making because that's going to provide ownership for them, but also you want them to make decisions where it's or answer questions like saying yes. You want to get them making decisions, involved, engaged, saying yes, things like this. And as we go, if there's situations where maybe they can't decide which color they want to do, or if they want to do grids or no grids, or maybe where we make recommendations in a way that might cause confusion and indecision. It's well, hey, do you want your window to do this or that? And they're like, well, I'm not sure. So what happens is when there's decisions that don't get made through the process, those are red flags for the customer. So maybe you get to the closing table, it's time to close, and maybe you even do still close it, because a lot of our directors were so good at managing the flow of everything that we can still get that decision on the spot. But maybe it ends up canceling because there was things that they were unclear about, or decisions that weren't made, and they get to thinking about it, and it just doesn't feel right.
It just left some hesitancy.
Exactly.
Whether they knew where it was coming from or not, you didn't control it in a way and help them make those decisions that you already knew were the right things, and you left it open.
Yep.
And there's all this uncertainty.
Yep. And it can create the unspoken objection as well. Or say and that's if everything goes well and you can pull off the close. But when you're at the closing table and there's nothing worse than trying to close a deal and they're like, oh, well, I really just got to think about it. Okay. What does you got to think about? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what color I want to do. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about that. There's all these red flags. There's all these unmade decisions. And how are they going to make a decision on a $30,000 contract when they don't even know what color they want?
You missed it.
So what I like to do, and what I like to coach directors in training on, is helping make decisions. Or I have right here, it says make assumptive recommendations if the customer's having a hard time with the decision.
Yeah, you're the expert.
Exactly.
You should know the right answer for them anyways.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just got to position it in a way that it almost seems like they're making the decision.
Yep.
Like, this would be nice, wouldn't it? The color. If they got an almond fence and everything is pointing towards almond, and they're like, I just can't decide between white and almond. I was like, well, let's just go take a look at this real quick, because I think I love white, but let's just go look at it from the outside. Mm-hmm. Bring you little color swatches out there with you. And be like, listen, your soffits are almond, your fence is almond. I know that these old windows are white, but they kind of just don't match anything. But you're the expert. You should be leading them down that path and help them make the decision for themselves. But you know what the right answer is, and you're going to miss out on some sales if you don't.
And what's crazy is they love it. You help them. You give them a recommendation like that. Well, hey guys, I know we're having a little bit of trouble deciding if it's white or almond. As I pulled up, I noticed that your soffit was almond, your door is almond, kind of the trim of everything. So what I'd recommend is go with almond, and everything's gonna match. It's gonna look great. And then
exactly.
And then they'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea.
But you know what? If you hadn't established yourself and had the confidence to come across as an expert, that doesn't work as well. But you got to have so much confidence in the way that you explain things and your recommendations that they're not going to think twice. They're almost going to be like, well, we're not sure, but since you're the expert, you tell us what we should get. That's what you want to establish yourself as an expert.
Absolutely. And then the next one is just, and again, this is just kind of surface level stuff, things that can help you get through an appointment and have some consistent success quickly. The next one is desperation is a deal killer. So we want to have an abundance mindset. Okay, guys, if you're going in there and you're acting desperate for the sale, like you need the sale, the customer picks up on that, and it's off-putting. Or say if you're in a dating scenario and you're acting desperate, do you think that person that you're trying to attract is going to be attracted to you if you're desperate?
Nope. They don't even know why they're not attracted to you anymore. But that desperation is like a deterrent.
Exactly. And, it's the same thing in a deal. So we want to have an abundance mindset, and you want to give off the attitude that, the customer, we're there to provide a service, and they actually need us more than we need them because of the nature of the deal, the advertising home opportunity, and it being first come, first serve. Look, guys, I would love to help you out. You obviously have a need. I like you guys a lot, but if this is not making sense for you, we set up 5 or 6 appointments in the neighborhood. We're going to set up your neighbors instead. So there's an abundance mindset. If it's not going to be them, it's going to be the next one. And we need to kind of have like a neutral, kind of nonchalant way about going about it. Like, I'm confident that if it's not you, it's going to be the next one. Either way, all my job is to do is set up these advertising homes. If I have to run 7 appointments, so be it. If it's 1 appointment, so be it. But that's my job, and I'm not worried about anything else. We're going to get the setup regardless and move areas. And when the customer sees that you just have, this conviction and this confidence, and, you're sticking to your story, then they'll believe the story and they'll go along with it. And again, guys, these are things, just some common things that you can do to ensure some consistent success with these appointments.
Yeah, even if you're in a slump, you got to find some way to muster that confidence and that conviction and lack of desperation, because we've all been there. I know Jared's been in little slumps, not nearly as many as me, but when I went through my slumps, that was the hardest thing for me to do, is to pretend like I wasn't in a slump and pretend like I wasn't desperate, because I had some tough times when I was starting sales. I was rough around the edges.
Yep.
But you got to make it work. You got to get your mind right, and you got to go in there with all that confidence and conviction, and your delivery has to be on point at all these points where you're building urgency and you're conveying this opportunity in a way where it's like, it really is. Everybody else in this neighborhood has the same problem you have, and I'm going to get this thing done in the next day or two. And it's okay. I understand that it's not always a good fit. And you got to say that with such confidence that there is no hesitation, and all that urgency and opportunity is conveyed in the right way.
Absolutely. And then another thing, and this is kind of, there's some touch points I wanted to touch on, and then we're going to get into the flow of the appointment, like each section. So these are just some kind of generalizations. This last one is third-party stories. So sometimes we have to get creative to close a deal. And statements like, this has been a great option for our customers in the past, things like that, to make the customer feel comfortable and confident that this is par for the course. It's something that we do all the time. Because if there's a situation where it's like a one-off, a customer doesn't want to be in an experiment. They don't want you to feel like they're the first person to try this on, because it could go bad. It could, there's uncertainty there. It's a huge red flag. So when we bring in that third party story, like, oh yeah, hey, I've done this 100 times. This is how well it's worked or whatever. Like I said, bring that third party in just to make it seem like it's something that happens all the time, even if it's not. Now, and again, it's to make the customer feel comfortable with that. Now, if it's something that you're unfamiliar with, and you don't have like the confidence and conviction with it, the customer's going to pick up on it.
100%.
So
and sometimes you may not even have that story to lean on yet, but if you run into one of those where that was a point where I could have used one of those stories, whether it was an objection or a concern by the customer, we have so much experience here between Jared, Obi, Blake, Andres, Joel, James. All these guys have those stories of their own. And if you don't have one, you better dang sure make sure that you never go into an appointment again without the artillery to be able to handle those situations. Even if you have to take somebody else's story and practice, drill, rehearse that thing until it's yours.
Absolutely. And the thing is, guys, if delivered with confidence and conviction, or something that we like to use a little bit is a term called professional arrogance. If you deliver it the right way, they don't know any different. They believe you 100%. And it's not like we're trying to get one over on them. It's just that sometimes we have to get creative to make a deal happen. Like, for example, if we can't get the financing in place, well, sometimes we can run, financing through Green Sky and Synchrony together. Boom, give them 2 loans. Now, I remember the first time I did that, I acted as if I'd done that 100 times. I said, yeah, this is what we've done in this situation. It's worked really well. We're just going to give you a loan with these guys, a loan with these guys, and I just need your driver's license to get you qualified. Simple as that. So again, guys, these are just some kind of just aspects of some things that'll help you get through there, or through maybe some difficult things in an appointment, and bringing in third-party stories. Even if it's something you've never done before, you don't have a specific story, you can just say, hey, we've done this, this is something we've done a lot in the past and it's worked out really well. Simple as that. Now we're going to get into appointment, the flow of that. So what I like to do, and I'd always recommend, and it's not always an option depending on what your schedule looks like, but get there a little bit early. Get there early, check your notes, get familiar with the customers' names. I like to really drill in my head.
You better dang sure know their names when you go in there.
Exactly. I like to drill in my head like, okay, this is what their name is. These are the notes. And be intentional about reading the notes and memorizing them, because you can read stuff and not be intentional about it and not even process it. So read the notes, and then what I like to do is kind of get an understanding of the area. So I might drive around the neighborhood a little bit a couple times before I actually park to see if there's other people that might have the windows. I'm going to get on Sales Rabbit. I'm going to see if there's actually customers that we have in the neighborhood that I can refer to. Name dropping, again, third party guys. And then I'm also going to pay attention, and this is some stuff that we've kind of already spoke about, but I'm going to pay attention to say what the exterior of the home, what the color scheme is. So then that way I'm already thinking of some recommendations that I can make as I go in there. Like I'm preloaded. And then also you want to know, okay, is this a stucco home? Is this siding? Is this block? Because also you want to have that stuff already, like say if they have questions about how the window's going to look or how the install is going to go, you forgot to even check if it's what the exterior is walking up to the home. And now you got to go outside and check or whatever. Just be ready for it.
These are all the basics, you guys. So this is the basic appointment flow and the things that you should be paying attention to. And if you're not, and you're hearing this stuff for the first time, well, that's our responsibility. But now you know.
Now you know.
And you never walk into an appointment without all of these tools. You are a professional, and you want to be able to have everything in your tool belt during every interaction, no matter what the questions are, that you're prepared ahead of time. There's some things you're not going to be able to have preparation on because you just never are able to calculate all that stuff beforehand. But there's all these basics that you're going to be able to cover most of that stuff with. And it's your responsibility to get there early, do your homework, go in there as a professional, prepared, and assuming that this thing is going to go really well and you're walking out of there with the contract.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because something that I found a lot of success with in pulling up to an appointment is like my mindset. And 100%. I would hype myself up and like expect myself. I would tell myself, oh, I'm going to close this one. Like no questions asked. I'm going to like every expectation in the world that I'm going to go in there and close it, and every belief. And I go in there and I just follow through with what I had told myself. And it's amazing how well it works, but you got to be intentional about it.
Yep.
As far as like entering the home. Okay. So, this is pretty basic stuff, but you want to introduce yourself. You want to look them in the eye. You want to shake their hand. And like I said, I already know their name. So typically like what I like to do, I like to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Jared with JKR Windows. It's Mike, right? Hey, Mike, how's it going? Wife walks in from the kitchen. Oh, hey, I'm Jared with JKR Windows. Is it Diane? Okay, hey, Diane, how's it going? Shake their hands. And so for them, and the reason why I do that, like I try to already know their name, is because there's already that there's this familiarity already. Yeah, this friendliness.
It's a warmer start.
Exactly.
If you're going in there and, oh God, I just forgot. I read their name, but it went right over my head. Then things start from a different place. It's kind of awkward. It's not warm.
Yep. And something you can do as well, just kind of use as you go throughout the process and you ask questions and things, like use their name. Hey, Mike, what do you think about this? Hey, Diane, what would you want to do here? Or just whatever it is. Like just try to use their names. And I think Joel is probably one of the best people I've seen as far as being intentional about using people's names.
Yes.
Like he's got a system and a process to it. And guys, we could talk to Joel more about that, but just be intentional about knowing their name and using it.
The cool thing about Ciro is a lot of Joel's appointments, your appointments, Andres, Obi, Blake, they're all recordings that everybody can have access to. I was hearing one of the other guys the other day. He's super intentional about getting better and absorbing the things that these other guys are doing. And he says he's been listening to Blake and Obi.
Yeah.
And he's just pulling up their recordings, and he's super admirable about like the things that they're doing and how they do it and how they conduct themselves and ask questions and build rapport. So you have access to all these things, you guys, and professionals don't just show up when it's time to perform. They put in the work ahead of time. They do the homework. They do the preparation.
Dues are paid. Conduct yourself in a professional manner in terms of the introduction. And then something that I do, one of the first things I'm doing, I'm looking at their feet. Okay. Do they have shoes on? They got tennis shoes on still? If they do, I'm going to leave my shoes on because they're good. They got their shoes on.
Yeah.
But if there's any question at all, whether or not you should take your shoes off, just take them off. Even if they tell you, like a lot of times they'll say, hey, oh no, don't worry about it, put them back on, which is fine. You can either leave them off or put them back on based on what they tell you. But the fact that you took it off, it's a sign of respect. So I'm going in there, I'm introducing myself respectfully, and I'm also taking my shoes off. And I've had deals where I've closed to where maybe they had, a lot of it's a cultural thing. So a lady had some Asian heritage, and she told me, she was like, that's the first thing I noticed, you took off your shoes. If you didn't take off your shoes when you came in my house, I wouldn't have listened to a word you said. That's what she told me.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah, and sometimes you just gotta have some situational awareness. If they got their whole entryway full of shoes and they're all neatly stacked, chances are you need to take your shoes off.
Yes. So, and like I said, I mean, if ever in doubt, just take them off. It goes a long way. And then also you want to, you're going in their house, you want to be respectful, but also you got to kind of take control. So we want to get them to the best possible position for us to deliver the information. And typically that's at the kitchen table.
I mean, no question.
Yeah.
Unless they don't have a kitchen table, I was never settling for anything less.
Yeah.
I tried a couple times in the family room where mom's over here and dad's over here.
Doesn't work.
And I'm trying to do an appointment like this the entire time. I'd never wanted to put myself in that situation again. So I would even put my stuff down and say, hey, I'll help you clean off the kitchen table.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yep. You need to kind of, again, you're going in there respectfully, but you're also taking control and just kind of gesturing towards it and like walking towards it and saying, the best place to set up, be most efficient kitchen table. So let's just go ahead and go over there, or whatever tag or word track you want to use. Just basically say, hey, this is the best place to set up. Let's go ahead and go to the kitchen table and just start walking over there. And they're like, okay. And they just do it. Mm-hmm. Now, there are scenarios where maybe they don't even have a kitchen table. I've walked into homes where they literally have no furniture at all.
Yeah. I've done appointments on lawn chairs before.
Exactly. But in a scenario, and this is even at the kitchen table, it's not like you just say, let's sit at the kitchen table and people sit randomly wherever. You need both decision makers sitting right next to each other, like shoulder to shoulder. And then you want to be sitting directly across from them, as close as possible. I mean, this is an intimate thing. So if you got if you're a person that's bad breath or whatever, like have some gum. Like you want to be as close as possible. And there's several reasons for it. One of them is just to create a relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
You're close to them.
And
you're talking.
You need eye contact with both of them.
Exactly. Eye contact. And that's why they're sitting next to each other. So you're not like Jefferson over there trying to rubberneck, get a deal closed. They're right there and you can equally engage them as you go. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important aspect, is to be equally engaging. Don't just say, for example, I had the story where I closed a deal. And the lady in the notes, it said she was the queen of the castle, and the house literally looked like a castle and a big turret right at the front of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's like this VP of sales. She runs sales for like 21 offices.
She was an alpha female.
She was an alpha female. And, I get in to run the appointment, and her husband, he's quiet guy, and he's a maintenance worker. Mm-hmm. Nothing overly special about him. And she's over there executive level calling shots, and he's a maintenance worker, All my training and everything that, I've developed over time, even though she's considered queen of the castle, she's the boss, appointment was set with her, blah, blah, blah. I gave him every bit of respect and attention that I gave her. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that once it came time to close the deal, she didn't care either way. She was like, yeah, I know we need windows, but I don't really care. What do you think? He looks at her and says, you know what? It's a good deal. I like it. And I think we should do it. And then she's like, okay, but I mean, like, we can't afford the cash, so we'd have to finance it. Are you going to finance it? He's like, yeah, I'll finance it my name.
Oh, you could have missed a big one there if you hadn't been paying attention to both of them.
And that was a $32,000 deal. Mm-hmm. So imagine I go in there and I bow down and I bend the knee to the queen of the castle and pay no mind.
Ignored the other guy.
Exactly.
During training, I've watched other people do that too. And because of the lack of experience, that almost seems like the right thing to do until you get your teeth kicked in a little bit and you get a little bit of taste of reality. Like, no, it doesn't matter how alpha that person may seem. They're a partnership. And we've lost deals because of it. So you got to give equal attention to both, keep them both involved, use both of their names, ask them both questions equally.
Absolutely. It goes a long way. It's the difference maker in a lot of these deals. And like I said, guys, these are just some basic principles and concepts that we can use. And if utilized properly, I mean, you don't need to be a guy that's been around JKR Windows for 3 years to have success.
Yeah.
You can be out of the gate and having success with these concepts.
Just utilize the training, practice, drill, rehearse, put in the time and the preparation.
Absolutely. Now, also part of the psychology of you being close to them, it eliminates distractions. The further you are away from them, the more the peripherals come into play, the more that they can get distracted. And you want them dialed in.
All your focus is right here. And you've got to, early on, I struggle with this a little bit, but over time you get more confidence to just very tactfully tell them exactly how this needs to play out. Like if they're sitting down at the kitchen table and one of them sat at that end and one of them sat at that end, just very politely say, you know what, if you guys don't mind, do you mind coming over here and sitting right next to each other? And I'll just sit right here across from you guys. What do you think they're going to say? Do you think they're going to say no?
Yeah. And I've done that and I've made a joke of it. Like, and the reality is if I don't have them sitting next to each other, I'm going to be like this. I'm like, guys, you know, as much as I need a neck workout, I don't want to be going like this all day. So if you guys wouldn't mind, let me just get you right next to each other.
Love that.
You know, just these little things. And it is one thing that if you guys want to know this stuff so well, and I have this in here, but you want to know this material so well that you're able to personalize it and add some jokes if you know, calls for a joke or whatever.
Personalize
so
it. Important. And realistically, you would never have made it to this director position in an elite sales professional position if you didn't have what it took to personalize and build rapport and engage and be personal with people. So we believe in you. And now it's just time to believe in yourself and apply these things. And it's not all just about memorizing things. It's about memorizing them to a place where you internalize them. And then the most important aspect of sales and performance at a high level,
personalize
it.
Absolutely. And excuse me. So again, if you're in a situation where maybe there's not a kitchen table to get to, the concept remains. You want them right next to each other. You want to be directly across from them. If that means you got to sit them down right next to each other on the couch and you sit on your window, you know, some of us are bigger than others and they might crack the case. I think Tristan actually did that one time.
Yep.
But like I said, the fact remains, like I needed to be as close as possible to them because the further I am away from them, the more distraction comes in, the less I have their attention, the less likely I am to close this deal, the less consistent I am. Now, so that's entering the home. The next one is build rapport. Now, with this section, I don't want you sitting there for an hour trying to build rapport and become best friends. It's really just you want to build enough rapport to disarm them, get them comfortable with you, and you got to get right into it. But asking basic questions, these are things that I ask every single time. How long have you been in the home? It gives me tons of ammunition, especially like, you know, if they've been there 10 years, yeah, they've probably noticed some window issues. If they've been there 2 months, that's a little bit different approach because maybe they haven't noticed the issues and I got to be like more forthcoming and pointing out issues that maybe they don't even know that they have. But so little things like, you know, hey, how long have you been in the home? You know, are you guys from the area? Stuff like that. It allows you to get an understanding of like who they are, how long they've been in the home, where they're from, and then you just want to try to find some commonalities. So just some basic rapport. If they got kids, they got dogs, whatever it is, we just kind of want to get on the same page, ask some questions, ask interested, find some commonalities. But it's like I said, we're not going to sit there for an hour at this point. You know, we need to be respectful of their time, and that's really important. And also part of the flow of everything. If we spend too much time trying to build rapport, we're throwing off the flow of some other important things. And there's going to be time later to build some more rapport. It's just when you're getting in the home, keep it short and simple in terms of rapport, enough to get them disarmed. And then if you know your content well enough, then you can add some jokes and things in as you go through the intro, which also further disarms them and builds some more rapport because they get more comfortable with you.
And then you got to transition.
Yep.
You make a very tactful transition before things get out of hand with rapport building and takes up all your time.
Absolutely. And then you get right into it. Give the intro. So with the intro, it's really important, again, to know the information well enough to be conversational. We do not want to sound like robots when we're doing this. But you need to be very clear about, just very clear in your pronunciation. You don't want to fly through it and get through it super quick. Just slow it down and make sure that you describe it in a way that they understand. And there's kind of like this, like, head nodding and stuff as you go, because we're telling them the story of the advertising home campaign right here. And we need them checked in to understand that story so they can be a part of it and be an advertising home.
Yeah. The way that they perceive it, the way that they understand it has a lot to do with how you keep them engaged with your body language, your facial expressions, your hand gestures. And it's not about, I mean, we're just sitting here having a conversation and my eyebrows go crazy. I want to use my hands. I want to just like use all these gestures to help you guys understand the importance of these things. And it's the same way that you need to do it when you're in front of a customer. You got to be colorful. You got to be enthusiastic. You got to have this conviction pouring out of you. Even when you're explaining just the most simple things, you still got to let it just pour out of you.
Absolutely. And then the most important part about this section, guys, is when we get to the end of the introduction section, when we're telling them about the advertising home program and the opportunity, is that when we dial down the urgency at the end of that section and we get an agreement. And what's interesting is we've had some outside perspective in consulting, and the perspective of the consultant was that we were alleviating pressure right there, which is, to me, it's interesting because that's the point where we're dialing down the urgency. We're getting them to agree to the fact that they know they need to make a decision today. But the way that we do it in a way to where it alleviates the pressure, because we tell them, hey, if this doesn't make sense for you, it's not a big deal. We're just going to set up your neighbors instead. No harm, no foul. Fair enough? Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a very basic word track for that, but the concept remains. And it's amazing because you get the agreement. And that's not just like, it's not something you say. It's not something you gloss over. It's an agreement. You look them dead in the eyes. You're very clear. You're not in your head. You get their agreement. Mm-hmm. That was one of the biggest things when I first started, the biggest things that clicked in my head in terms of my success and my consistency was understanding how important that aspect of the whole appointment was.
That may be the most important part of the whole thing, that one little section right there.
Absolutely.
Of that script, for just reiterating the urgency and the opportunity one last time.
And say if for a director in training, they can go verbatim on every single syllable on this intro. And if they flub that last part, they are not checked off. They got to redo it. They got some more work to do.
Yeah, we don't want you to go out there and fail.
Yeah.
If you can't do that with confidence, with a straight face, with just a crazy amount of conviction, we know that there's a strong chance you're not going to make it. So that is one of the most important parts for you. Even if you've been around a while, you're starting to see a little bit of change in your production.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at that.
That's the first place we go back to and listen to your presentation right there.
Absolutely. Now, moving forward. So we got through the introduction. We got their agreement. Next, we're going to show them a slideshow. So with the slideshow, so what I put here, it's extremely important to get through this section quickly because it can be boring. All right. And when we're trying to manage the flow of the appointment, the energy flow of everything, we want to make sure that we get to the slideshow properly. Now, we don't want to skip the slideshow because there's very important information about the manufacturer, about the installation, about the energy efficiency, warranty, etc. So we're not glossing over that. We're not skipping it, but we need to get through it efficiently. So if you feel like you want to add all these extra value points and all these extra little add-ons, well, guess what? It's going to take more time in that slideshow, and you're going to see that customer, like, their eyes start to glaze over. So what I like to do is whatever information is not ours, I get through it quickly. And then whatever the information that is specific to JKR Windows, like our glass package or our warranty or install guarantee, I'm going to show a little bit more excitement. Now, this is not an infomercial, but at the same time, it's going to be a slight uptick in my tonality. I'm just going to be a little bit more excited about it, But the thing is, you want to get through that slideshow quick enough to where, again, it's super important, but you don't want to make it so boring that you lose them. So
no.
And you don't want to put so much.
Keep a good pace right here for sure.
Exactly. You don't want to put so much emphasis on a competitor or whatever that, like, you're spending all this time on them and you're losing them. You get through them quickly. You highlight, have a little bit of excitement for the stuff that's JKR Windows, and we get to the damn window presentation.
Yep.
Because that's
keep moving it along. Keep moving it along.
Exactly. And and you guys all of us will be on a little bit different timeline, as far as like our cadence and some of the stuff we stay. It could take a little bit longer to get to from each section. But
what is your ideal time frame for an appointment?
So you should be able to get through your intro 5 minutes.
Intro 5 minutes.
Slideshow 5 minutes. Window
5 minutes.
presentation 5 minutes.
So 15 minutes in, if you add in rapport building, you should be 20 minutes in. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to grab
Measurements.
some measurements.
Exactly. About 20 minutes in, you should be getting pretty close to getting measurements.
Yeah, you got to be. I mean, there's some of our guys that like to chit chat a little bit and BS, and they're talking about guns and their military background for a little bit longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is okay because they can speed things up on the backside. They got this internal clock, and they're like, okay, now it's time to pick it up.
Exactly. Yeah. And you need to have an internal clock. There needs to be some like built-in urgency to get through it, because you don't know, you got to be respectful of their time too. You want to spend all this time on rapport and everything. It's all great and fine and dandy, but then you get time to drop the price and all of a sudden the wife has to leave because you took too long.
Ooh, that's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck closing that. But yeah, so then we get right to the window presentation, guys. And this is the highlight. It is the highlight of our presentation, of the process, of the flow, and all of that. And it needs to be exciting. Again, it's not an infomercial, but there's some excitement. There's some enthusiasm with your window presentation. You're also very clear with your communication. You don't need to rush through it. Mm-hmm. Speak very clearly and make a lot of eye contact. Engage them. Ask them questions as you go, especially like if you feel like they're excited about something. Like when you show the easy clean feature.
Yeah. Elaborate a little bit.
Elaborate a little bit, or like, which one of you guys is the window cleaner? Okay. Well, you're going to love this part of it, just some stuff to kind of engage them as they go. And something that I like to do, I always do with my window presentation is at the beginning of the window presentation, I show them what the grids are without the grids, and I get them to make a decision on their grids.
Right there.
Exactly.
Great opportunity to do that.
Exactly. And again, it's a situation where I'm not looking for indecision. So if I need to make a quick recommendation and move it along, I will. Mm-hmm. But I get them to make a decision because they start getting ownership of it at that point.
Yep.
And then I get to where I turn the window around to show them the outside and the frame. That's when I cover colors.
Yep. This is what you'll see from the outside.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so there's this kind of cadence to it. So they're making a decision at the beginning of it. They're making a decision at the middle part of it.
And you're starting to solidify like this vision of them owning these windows.
Exactly. Yep. And, and I've seen it before where people, they want to add a bunch of extra things to where I've seen the window presentation be boring because they wanted to add so many extra things. Keep it short, keep it simple. It's all scripted out. We got videos on it, the whole deal. Hit those points, unpack some things that they might be excited about, spend a little bit more time on it, but get through it. Again, with some enthusiasm, some excitement, but this is not an infomercial. And then after I get done with the window presentation, I always then get some more feedback. Okay, what did you guys think? Or, which feature do you guys see yourself using the most? Stuff like that. You want to engage them about the window after the window presentation. Mm-hmm. And then, guys, we get right into getting measurements. Extremely important to have all decision makers get the measurements with you. Bare minimum, at least one, because sometimes wife's got to check on the kids or whatever random stuff it is. As much as you can get every decision maker along the path of the measurements, definitely do it. Now, with the measurements, there's a couple things that we're doing there. For one, we're getting up, we're getting the blood flowing. We're walking around the house with them. So that kind of changes, it transitions from like kind of all this, like we're sitting down, going over all this information. Next thing we're up, we get the blood flowing and we're going around their house and I'm starting to see their pictures, their collectibles, the things that they're into.
Yeah.
So I can
all the things that they love.
Exactly. So I utilize that.
More opportunities to build rapport and trust.
Exactly. That, and like I said earlier, guys, we want to keep it pretty short and simple just to get them disarmed and comfortable with us at the beginning of the appointment with rapport. But this is your time to shine and build some serious rapport. Now we want to make sure that we're so good at getting measurements and inputting that into the system that we're not making mistakes. But also, it's a great time to get rapport because you're going around the house and there's so many opportunities to create rapport because you're seeing what they're about, what their lifestyle is. And then also, another equally important aspect of the measurements is
pain points.
Pain points.
Oh,
dang. It's like this guy knows what he's talking about. So another important aspect, guys, extremely important, is pain points, because maybe they know some of their windows have problems, but maybe not all of their windows. So it's how you turn maybe someone that's interested in replacing a couple windows into replacing the whole home. Or just really just planting it in their head that they have some serious problems, they have issues, and we're there to solve them.
Maybe for the first time. Because,
yeah,
I mean, most of the guys we bring in, before I showed Jared that sample window for the first time, he's like, I never even knew that like this was a thing. I didn't know you had to replace windows.
No.
So, and most people are like that. So this is our opportunity to point out all these things. Like, their windows are terrible. They're leaking, they're moldy, they're dusty windowsills, they don't work very well. And this is your opportunity to shine without like rubbing it in their face. You know, we're just pointing some things out. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if these things worked?
Yep.
Yeah. And now you're also getting some extra yeses along the way. And you're doing these tag endings that, after listening to Andres and Obi and Blake, Jared as well, these guys are so good at getting these little tag endings. Like, wouldn't it be nice if these windows did operate? Wouldn't it be nice if this windowsill just didn't collect dust like this? And you're getting yeses along the way. These are incredible opportunities to be pointing out those pain points and to be getting these little reinforcing yeses along the way.
Absolutely. And don't ever underestimate that aspect of it. Have them get the measurements with you. Okay.
I want to point something else out on that too, because whenever I didn't get both spouses to come with me to get measurements, it was like all of a sudden I got this anxiety. Like, we just talked about a bunch of stuff that the other spouse is not going to know about. Like, this has just created a bunch of uncertainty now when I'm talking about the clothes.
Yep.
So now it's like you've got an extra responsibility to go back over every one, as many of those decisions as you and that spouse made that was with you, with the other spouse, because they got to be on the same page. So I'm saying, okay, John, you remember we were back in that room and we talked about that window that could have been left or right, or it could have been up and down. So what do you think, Mary? I mean, do you mind if that window goes up and down instead of left and right? You guys are just used to it being left and right, but I think it makes more sense to do it up and down. And she's like, you know what? I always thought that window was kind of skinny. Can we do it up and down? It's like, yes, it makes way more sense to do it like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I've done a lot. If I can't get them both to come with me, I remember the little things that may have been questionable or whatever it is. And I make sure I bring it up to them, or we'll go get them. They'd be like, you know, I'm not sure. Well, let's go grab your wife real quick. We'll ask her. And next thing you know, she's getting all the measurements with us.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And then it's just like, you see why it's so important that I have both of you guys here? Because can you imagine just letting John make that decision for you?
Exactly. Yep. And so start tying that stuff in that we talked to them about, and, you know, making light of it. Now, guys, we're going to get into, so we've gotten the measurements. Now it's time to generate a quote. This is an interesting time because, again, we're trying to manage the flow of the energy and all that. And it's okay if there's a little bit of quiet time, but you want to know your process and how to do everything so well that you can maintain a little bit of small talk while you're getting your quote. Also, some things that people like to do, some of our directors like to do, is like engage the customer with our products during that time. Whether it be have them start looking up reviews if they haven't already looked at our reviews. Have them start looking at some before and after photos on our website. Bring the catalog with you and refer to them. Hey, these are JKR Energy Pros. This is the double hung window that I was telling you guys about. If you refer to the back here, you can see our installation guarantee. Why don't you guys take a look at that while I get this quote taken care of for you guys. Again, we want to engage them in a way to where they are basically dealing with some JKR content, whether it's on our website, reviews, slicks, whatever it is. But we want to make sure that downtime is managed in a way, again, like I said, we can have a little bit of quiet time there, but I don't want you sitting there for 20 minutes dead silent. It's a little bit awkward, and whatever energy that you built up along the way with getting the measurements and all of that's now gone. That wave of energy that you guys were riding on, it's gone. And it's important, if you can keep that wave going, that energy will flow into the close and then making the decision, being happy about it. So now, guys, we're getting close. Closing. So extremely important to have this part dialed in. You want to have this part dialed in so well, again, that it comes out, it's second nature. You can personalize it a little bit, but it needs to be a very, very smooth, clean and clear delivery. with the closing. And you want to speak clearly with conviction. You want to, it's confidence. You don't want to just blow right through and be like, okay, is there information? What do you want to do? Like, be very clear about what it is, what the options are, and we're communicating. So we're looking in their eyes. We're not in our head. We're kind of engaging them, as we go.
And also the idea is that throughout the process, you've been doing some price conditioning. So through your presentation, through your slideshow, you know enough at this point that you should be able to do some price conditioning. So you're overcoming some hurdles before you ever get to this point, because the worst is to get to the point where we're dropping that price, and there's a huge roadblock to now overcome because they have never looked at windows and they are in complete sticker shock right now. If you ever have that, it is your own fault. You should have came prepared to do price conditioning along the way. Not giving up too much, but just enough to let them know that this is going to be a big investment for your house and it's worth it. And here's all the reasons why it makes sense. So you're building more value than they are perceived is in that money that they need to separate with to make this happen. And sticker shock is 100% your fault. So big thing to think about. If you keep running into that, come prepared next time to do a little bit extra price conditioning, so that never happens to you again.
Absolutely. And now we're cool again. We're confident. We're nonchalant because we're not desperate at all. We're being very clear with our communication. Kind of a positive, a positive way that we're explaining everything. And then we go over what their options are. We're very clear about what the options are, and then simply ask them to move forward. So we can get a lot more into some of like those details, but again, we're just kind of what the energy flow management of the appointment is and the important things to consider. And again, when you're at the closing table, being cool, calm, non-desperate, very clear, and have it dialed in so well that no matter what questions they ask or whatever it is that you're explaining, you're not bumbling over it, you're not stumbling over it. Super important that you have this part dialed in. And then what was the last thing? Okay, yeah. Now, once you go over their options, you ask for the sell. What do? Do you keep talking or do you shut up?
Only the professionals know the answer to that.
Well, I'm a professional. My answer is that you shut up. So go over the options and then shut up. Let them, even if it's a 20-minute awkward silence, whoever talks first loses. So, and I love this part of it because that's when decisions are made. That's when money is made in that awkward moment. And that's
when you're tested as a professional.
Exactly.
Because only a professional can sit there with a smile on their face and just looking back and forth, keeping eye contact, and just letting them work themselves through the process.
Absolutely.
And it is the first person that breaks the silence is typically the person that loses.
Yep. And then there might be a scenario where you have to go over another option with them. So they're like, well, what if we did this? It's like, okay, well, let me give you the information on that. Boom, be quiet again. And let them stew in it. And they'll start selling themselves, well, I do like this. And it is, especially when it's a couple. Mm-hmm. They'll start talking to each other, selling each other on it. Well, we do need to get it done. And this is a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, why else are you in their house? How did we make it to their house to begin with? Was it because they didn't need windows? No.
They need windows.
They need those things.
Yeah.
And it's your job to lead them to a decision that you already know is right for them. And if you did your job right and you presented price and then you shut up, they'll do the rest of it.
Yep.
They'll convince themselves that this is the right decision. And these are the reasons why, because you've done such a good job at painting the picture for them throughout the process, price conditioning, doing all your little trial closes and your little tag endings, getting all those confirming yeses along the way. They know it's right. And if the timing is right, the rest will work itself out.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're getting to the last step of the process. And this is...
And you know what I was saying earlier is every time I explain each one of these individually, I explain it as the most important part of the whole process is
But the thing is, they are.
They are.
They are so important. Each one of it holds so much weight. And if you miss on that step, consider yourself not a deal closed. Consider yourself, looking at a slump because you're skipping steps. It's all built in. And something that I wanted to say is, guys, the way that we have this process put together with the intro, the information that we provide, the slideshow, everything, it is so clear. Everything is so clear for these customers. And we're just trying to paint the clearest picture possible. As Blake would say, we're trying to Bob Ross that shit.
Bob Ross and
then
beautiful little trees.
And then that way, happy little trees. And then that way, the decision is just really easy for them to make. And if you guys play this game the right way with the flow of the appointment and hitting on the certain aspects and price conditioning, whatever it is, you guys would watch these appointments from some of our top directors and think they're just laydowns. Like, these guys were just ready for windows. They literally had their credit card pulled out of their checkbook ready to go when we walked in. It's not the case. They manage the energy. Whatever it is, they take them through the process, and they do it so well that the customer literally has no objections. It makes sense. And why wouldn't I take advantage of this opportunity and solve my problems right now? Mm-hmm. That's the way that we position everything to the customer. So when we sit down at the closing table, it's not all this back and forth. It's really, that's one of the easiest parts of it. And then something I also wanted to touch on is, like, keeping your cool, because maybe it's a big deal. Maybe it's a $60,000 deal. And inside you're like going crazy because you're like, what are they going to say? Or like, you're so excited and they said yes, and you're trying to do financing or whatever it is. Like, hold your composure. Doesn't matter how excited you are or whatever it is. Cool, calm. You've done this 100 times. Even if biggest deal you ever closed was 20 grand, and now you're looking at closing a $60,000 deal. And that even ties into just, it doesn't matter. It's a mindset thing. It doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 deal or a $100,000 deal. Have the same mindset and the same approach in asking for the sell. Because what some directors will do, they'll go a little bit soft on the close because it's such a big deal. That's not the time to go soft. Treat it just like everything else. Yep. And you'd be surprised. And Blake was one of the guys I learned that from. Closing big deal after big deal after big deal, and it's because he treated them no differently than the small deals.
Yeah, there's some magic in that. The big ones and the small ones, you just got to keep the same type of mindset, the same confidence. It doesn't matter what the number is. You're doing them a disservice if you change any bit of your process, because you're going to reduce your chances.
Absolutely. And then one last thing on the closing portion that I wanted to say is, if you do the silence, okay, and then they're like, well, what about the, oh no, I already covered it. Yeah. So it's important to understand that whatever other option you give them, then you be quiet again. But I think I covered that.
Yep.
So the last thing, guys, is we get so good at painting the picture for the sales process and getting people to, get excited, sign on the dotted line, all this. But maybe we're missing out on setting a clear picture and expectations on what the rest of the process is going to look like. And they wake up the next morning like, what did I do? I'm not even sure when my install is. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about that. You know what? I think I just need to cancel this order.
And I think a lot of times they don't even realize, like, they don't have those specific concerns. All they know is that there's still so much uncertainty.
Something that's unpacked.
There was some stuff that didn't get unpacked, and it creates now a bunch of hesitation. Like, oh God, did I do the right thing? So the last thing we talk about is maybe the most important thing if you want to reduce your cancellations is painting that picture and doing your best impression of Bob Ross in your last 5 to 7 minutes that you're there, to make sure that you've expressed as clear as possible with as much understanding as you can possibly muster, so they understand how the rest of their process is going to go. Every step of it. It doesn't take very long to explain it. We got just a couple of things. Mm-hmm. Next step in the process is I would tell them like everything. I was like, I'm getting ready to go hand this contract in, and then it gets processed through our fulfillment department, and a lady immediately, as soon as she possibly can, will send this off to get scheduled for critical measurements.
Yep. And then Ryan, our project manager, he's going to call you to get those critical measurements scheduled. Like start using names. Mm-hmm. It's just credibility. It's credibility for the company. You're using names. There's actually people behind it. It's not just a company. There's people behind it. There's a relationship behind it. And that's everything, like Jeff mentioned, from the measurements to when it's going to be ordered, expectations on the timeline. And you know what, guys, maybe there will be a little bit in between when we get things ordered and get things inventory. There might be a little bit of quiet time. Like set expectations for each one of those. Set expectations on what we're going to need from them. You know, we need you to pull your furniture out 3 feet from the windows so we can get our drop cloths down. Like, again, Bob Ross the shit out of this. And then we want to make sure that the customer understands that we're there for them. We are their window guy. It doesn't matter.
You are. Like you specifically. JKR Windows is also, but they want a guy.
Yep.
They don't want to just be like some random person. It's like, well, who am I going to deal with now? Like when you leave. That they may not say that, but that's what they're thinking. You need to be the guy, and you need to tell them that you're the guy. You have my cell phone number, and please, 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 if you have any questions, any concerns between now and when we get the install done, please call me. I want to make sure that you got all those answered. And then after this is done, I'm always going to be your window guy. That's the one thing you get with JKR Windows and with me that you won't get anywhere else is I will always make sure that you're happy and always make sure that you know how to operate your windows and get your questions answered. You don't get that anywhere else. And that became my final line at every appointment that I did for the past 3 years after I left that other company. And my cancellation rate went to almost zero for those past 2 years. I had nothing cancel. I was making sure that this was going to be a right decision for them. And then I Bob Ross the shit out of it when I left and told them that I'm your guy. Those people still call me today. Even the people from the previous company, they're calling me, and I told them that I was going to make a commitment to them forever and for always, as long as they live in this house and have these windows. I'm your guy.
And he still is, and they're still being taken care of, even from another company.
Always.
And we want you guys to have that sort of conviction and belief that you're going to be that guy for them, and that they understand and they believe that, and that you're going to be that person for them.
And then you got to deliver on it.
You got to deliver.
What you said you're going to do.
Yep. You know, you got to we overpromise, we overdeliver, guys. And as far as, like Jeff said, you know, we're not in there to sell deals to get canceled and have to deal with the mindset of maybe telling your coordinator or whatever. This is such an important aspect of it. And you really need to believe and understand that, like, if you want to take this opportunity and represent JKR Windows, you better do it to the fullest. And if you're their window guy, you better be their window guy. If it's a Saturday or whatever it is, just respond to them. You know, what I think there's one last thing on here. Oh yeah. And something that some of our directors are doing that I really like, and I think this really solidifies that the customer's understanding of you being their window guy, is put their number in your phone. Put in their name, their phone number, make sure that they know that they see you doing it. Maybe even send them a text to be like, hey, just so I know that you got my card, but just so you know, this is Jared with JKR Windows. Save my number. I have your number. Say, just let me know if you guys need anything. Something as simple as that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's an extra step beyond just giving them your card and here's the folder and here's your stuff and here's my card and let me know. Once that number is in there and you sent them a text, that solidifies it. Now you got to do what you said you were going to do. They've got your number. They will likely not call you, but if they do, you got to do what you said you're going to do. Be their window guy, get them their answers, be prompt, respond quickly, and live with integrity, live with values. We know you all got your own core values, personal values, but you're also representing JKR Windows. And we got some high standards, high expectations, and core values that we operate by. And we expect you to as well.
Absolutely, guys. So yeah, this is, again, it's just a breakdown of the flow of the appointment and some basic things and concepts. And if you guys can follow and master these concepts, be prepared to make a lot of money and have a lot of success with your career with JKR Windows.
Help a lot of people replace their windows. So appreciate you guys checking in. This was a long one. For those of you that stuck around to the end, we know that you're serious. Leave us a comment and let us know that you made it till the end and that you plan on becoming a professional, helping a lot of customers, making a lot of money. Until next time, thanks for checking in. Just real quick.
Later on.
We'll see you guys.